And welcome, everybody, to the Ingraham Angle. I'm Laura Ingraham in Washington. Lots of news to unpack for you tonight. We have a big show on tap. Anthony Scaramucci is here, straight ahead, to dish on Bannon, Fusion GPS, and his own future. And later, my thoughts on the Golden Globes and candidate Winfrey. But first, we start tonight with President Trump showing the world what a real leader looks like, chairing a bipartisan meeting on DACA in front of the cameras. The president left no doubt as to who's running the show in Washington and the future of immigration. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Today, President Trump met with congressional leaders, Republicans and Democrats, on that thorny issue of immigration. And he did something we don't see often in Washington. He let the press in to film some of the discussions, almost an hour. I mean, look at Dick Durbin. He doesn't look all that thrilled, but he's one of the president's most vicious critics, sitting right next to the president. As I've been saying for many years, during the anti-amnesty battles of 2006, 7, and 2014, the people have a right to see where everybody's cards are in this game of high-stakes poker for the nation. And the president made sure that happened in quite a respectful manner.
This was an idea I had last week. I was sitting with some of our great Republican senators, and we all agreed on everything. Let's have the same meeting, but let's add the Democrats. Dick, perhaps you'd like to say a few words?
We can come together and reach an agreement. And when that happens, I think good things will happen in other places.
Tom, would you like to say something?
I hope that this meeting can be the beginning of building trust between our parties, between the chambers, because I know for a fact all the Republicans around the table are committed to finding a solution, and I believe all the Democrats are as well.
Bob, where are you with the bill?
You've challenged us, and we should step up to that challenge, and we're going to do it in a bipartisan fashion, but we have to put our best foot forward.
Setting aside the substance of the negotiations for just a moment, one thing is abundantly clear after today. That media story that they've been peddling for days and weeks and even months, that the president doesn't have a handle on things, well, he was clearly in command. He was gracious, and I think he couldn't have been kinder to the 22 legislators in attendance. Yet, look at the way the Washington Post headline characterized the event. We got a glimpse of Trump negotiating today. It didn't go well. That is just absolutely pathetic. As usual, President Trump is like a powerful political astringent. He's trying in good faith to include Democrats in the process. And what does he get for it? Nothing but grief from the media. Now, remember when President Obama had his one measly roundtable at Blair House with Republicans before the Obamacare vote?
Treat all Americans the same under provisions of the law so that they will know that geography does not dictate what kind of health care they would receive. I thank you, Mr. President.
Let me just make this point, John, because we're not campaigning anymore. The election's over.
Well, today at the White House, the petty gutter-dweller author Michael Wolff became even smaller. And I'm not talking about his diminutive stature either. I'm referring to Wolff's phony narrative that President Trump is somehow not mentally equipped for the job. Today we saw he's sharp, he's savvy, and he's really impatient for solutions for the American people. If anything, it's Washington that's not able to keep up with his pace. The bureaucracy moves too slowly for Trump. And all that he wants to get done, it's hard to get done with how glacially this whole thing goes. So I think it's about time that the Trump-hating media and the political elites, why not have their own fitness for their own jobs examined? Call me crazy, but I actually think your abilities and your fitness should be measured by your track record and your accomplishments or lack thereof. Think for a moment about the politicians in both parties as well, who've failed their constituents with stupid policies and ideas that did zero except waste our hard-earned money or suffocate economic opportunity. Just look at the crime in Chicago and Baltimore, the homelessness, the epidemic we're seeing of it in San Francisco and L.A. And as for the press, let's not forget that most of them were embarrassed by their predictions of President Hillary. And they're still failing their readers and their viewers with the same old tropes that they tried against Trump in 2016.
How can you be a race baiting, xenophobic bigot, which Donald Trump is. 2 or 3 months before any Republicans voted, Donald Trump started talking about the Muslim ban. I knew immediately, at that moment, and said at that moment, I can never vote for this guy. And I let everybody know I was voting for Jeb Bush, and Jeb lost.
I'm sorry. And he's saying Trump is kind of out of it? Jeb Bush? He couldn't win his home state, Joe. I mean, imagine if instead of elevating these spurious claims of a nasty crackpot journalist, reporters spent more time getting to understand the hopes and dreams of Americans who are outside of the Acela corridor. Get out of the bubble, boys. I actually think Trump is really growing into the job quite well, thank you very much. By any objective measure, he's accomplished more and more good for the country in 1 year than I believe most other presidents in my lifetime. And now, as for the actual policy analysis of what this bipartisan gaggle may do on immigration, there were some good signs and some not so good signs today. First, let's talk about the positive. The president reiterated his must-haves in any DACA deal.
We need a wall. It has to be a bill to end chain migration, cancel the lottery program. Those 3 things are paramount.
Well, in a perfect world, we would have enough Republicans, and even a few Democrats maybe, who would pass the RAISE Act, that Tom Cotton, Senator Perdue Act, before we took any steps toward rewarding those who are in the country illegally. Citizenship shouldn't be bargained away for some song with maybe a green card. Shouldn't do it. Now to the concerning part of the DACA roundtable.
This should be a bipartisan bill. This should be a bill of love. Truly, it should be a bill of love, and we can do that. When this group comes back, hopefully with an agreement, this group and others from the Senate, from the House, comes back with an agreement, I'm signing it. I mean, I will be signing it. I'm not going to say, oh, gee, I want this or I want that. I'll be signing it.
Oh, wait a second. I hope the president hasn't been reading that Jeb Bush immigration book. Remember in 2014 when Jeb described illegal immigration as an act of love? Well, like clockwork, Jeb Bush tweeted today, encourage the president is seeking bipartisan solutions to our immigration challenges. I'll bet. Color me concerned. Well, while the president seems eager to do a DACA deal, I would caution that this is not the reason why he won. The American people elected him to protect their security and well-being first. So I have 5 thoughts for the president and the GOP. Number 1, focus on how immigration affects the American worker in the language that you use, even when you talk about doing something for the DACA so-called kids. Number 2, Trump won because his position on immigration differed from everyone else's in that room for the most part. So we need to keep the focus on what's good for American citizens and legal immigrants. Law and order, my friends, remains popular, necessary to the Trump agenda. Number 3, let's everyone be honest that passing DACA, well, it's not going to be some magic elixir for Americans. The GOP is going to be drummed out of office if they're seen as being more compassionate toward illegals than they are toward American citizens. And number 4, if we don't change our legal immigration system, and fast, the melting pot will break beyond repair. Assimilation, patriotic immigration, and merit must be central to any discussion. If we don't get this right, we won't be 2 countries, we're going to be 10 countries. Number 5, if Republicans can't get Democrats to agree on chain migration, getting rid of it, we really know that they care more about illegal immigrants than the working Americans. That'll be good for Republicans. Of course, it'd be bad for the country. Remember, the U.S. went from 9 million immigrants to 45 million immigrants coming in just a half a century. That was the largest movement of people in the history of the world. So whatever they finally agree on, after today, we should all agree on this. The president is fully engaged and fully committed to the tricky and often unpleasant process of shaking up Washington. If he can get these entrenched elites in D.C. to secure this border and focus on the needs of the American people in the immigration debate, that alone will be a massive victory for this president and for the country. As the details of this DACA plan unfold, we're going to be watching, and very closely. And that's the angle. For reaction, let's bring in our guests. Columnist for the Washington Examiner and Fox News contributor Byron York here in Washington, also here in Washington. Washington Times opinion editor and Fox News contributor Charlie Hurt, and in Miami, 5-time Emmy Award-winning journalist Elvira Salazar, currently the anchor of Mega TV's nightly newscast. Great to see all of you. Elvira, let's start with you on this. The president pleased Jeb Bush today with his approach to immigration. He looked, to me, very in command of the room. He was looking like he wanted to come up with some solution. I may not love the solution in the end, but boy, he seems to want to get to results and bring all parties to the table.
And we are very happy about that, and good evening, and thanks for inviting me. I wrote at the beginning of this year and for Newsmax that Trump was going to be for immigration what Nixon was for China. Only somebody that is such an staunch anti-illegal immigration could pave the way, as we saw today, to acquire and to be able to achieve something that has not been able to be done in the last 30 years, which is to not only to give some type of legality to the DACA kids, but to take care of the 11 million people. And that we can go into that discussion. How are we going to do that? But President Trump showed today that he is willing to put political capital that he has, and now political willingness to solve the problem, starting with the DACA kids.
Charlie Hurt, when I hear the president say we're going to do a DACA deal, to me that removes the leverage, because if someone knows that you're going to do the deal, well, where's your leverage there? I'm a little concerned about that. I mean, the focus should be on the American people first. What's good for them?
I'm totally concerned as well. But if at the end of the day, what he's trying to do is he's luring Democrats into negotiating all this, and then at the end of the day, they refuse to go along with it because it has security measures in it, then he can beat them up about it. But what I think was most interesting about this thing today, for an hour, Donald Trump opened up that meeting so that the American people could see what politicians, when they get behind closed doors, talking about this stuff. All they talked about was DACA. They must have said DACA 1,000 times.
Yeah, where was all the other stuff? The immigration judges?
And all the other people. Yeah. All the other people that are affected by the illegal immigration. None of that ever got brought up. All everybody could agree upon was DACA. And if Republicans go along with this and do some sort of DACA deal that doesn't include serious enforcement, including chain migration, they're going to be done.
DHS Secretary Byron said, well, enforcement has to be part of the deal. Yeah. I heard that really. I was on the plane, a 5-hour delay coming back from Atlanta. That was fun. So I was sitting there like trying to pull stuff up on YouTube, and I heard that like, wait, part of the deal? Enforcement is a solemn obligation of this government, and it can't be in the future. It's got to be real and meaningful, and Trump said the wall.
Yeah, I did not see any agreement taking place at this meeting. And there was the section that worried a lot of immigration harder liners was this exchange between Senator Feinstein and the president. And Senator Feinstein did the classic Democratic strategy, which is, why don't you give us everything we want first, and then we'll talk about what you want. And it sounded as if the president agreed with that. And then I watched it, and then I read the transcript.
Well, let's play it, guys. Let's play it. We actually have the exchange. So let's let our viewers watch. Then you can comment, Elvira. I'll just read it because it's quicker. So the president said, I have no problem. I think basically... I think that's basically what Dick is saying. Well, Dick Durbin was saying, let's do a clean DACA, right?
Yes, but
so
I read
the president now with Dick Durbin on immigration?
I read the transcript.
I missed that part of the campaign.
When the president says DACA, he means DACA, wall, chain migration, and visa lottery.
Yeah, and I'm going to hit
That's what he says.
Tomorrow.
You see, what you guys, I think what you guys are missing. Yeah. What we're missing here is that we got to put this to rest. We got to finish with this DACA immigration deal so we can move on and do other things. You know, we in the Hispanic community, and I do represent millions of us and people that think like me, is that we don't like this to keep on talking about this immigration. We want to put an end to it. We want some type of immigration reform law that will include not necessarily citizenship, but some type of legality. Not only for the DACA kids.
I have a question for you, Elvira. Do you think that the DACA people who are upwards of 37, 38 years old now, should they then be allowed to bring in their aunts, uncles, cousins twice removed, like the chain migration, that spider web of people who come in? Should that all be part of this?
and I know where you're going. I believe that, first of all, we're talking about from 16-year-old to 30-year-old, 800,000 kids, I mean, young adults that are, most of them are working. Okay, they're kids, they're working. But the main problem here is that they did not know that they were breaking the law. And, we are Americans, and we are the beacon of human rights. So if you do not know because you are too little to understand, not only that, you're fully assimilated. You speak English. You forgot how to speak Spanish. You're working. You're not a gang member.
The jury's out on some of
those
that.
are merits.
We got 2,300 criminals as members of that have been caught.
And then, they should be out of here.
So
we don't want criminals.
The question on chain migration, which is what
the
really,
kids, okay.
To me, that's an explosion. So should parents of the DACA, should they be able to stay? They're also illegal. So that's 1.8 million people who will be allowed to stay here legally. That's a big number. Let Charlie get on this. Big number jump from 800,000. Hold on,
let me answer you.
And that was one of the very positive things that I think came out of this meeting today was Donald Trump said, look, I'm going to campaign on this. I'm going to make it a political issue. Democrats can't defend chain migration. But one other thing about the DACA is I get that. We'll go ahead.
I'll get to Elvira real quick.
He has to campaign on this. Remember, there are 49 Democrats in the Senate. They're all opposed to this. There are 4 Republican senators who have signed on to this clean DACA Dream Act.
Flake,
that's
McCain,
53. It is Cory Gardner, Flake.
Oh my God, Cory Gardner. Well, when he's not pushing
Lindsey
pot
Graham
legalization,
and Lisa
he's for the illegal
Murkowski.
aliens. Elvira, really quickly, should chain migration be part?
This is thorny. This is the scenario. Is like, for me to be able to save my child, I need to leave him. And, that's not a very pleasant position to be in. And I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, here's the problem. When criminals in the United States, when they commit a crime, guess what? They're separated from their children. That's called repercussions for violating our law. So this idea that everybody's a saint that comes in as a legal immigrant. Everyone's a valedictorian and saving cats from trees. And regular workers have to suck it up, Buttercup. I just think it's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
That's
what Trump won.
Allow them.
And what about the culpability of the parents?
Let me just say this.
The parents don't have any culpability.
For the parents. No, the parents do. The parents broke the law, but the system allowed them to stay here for more than 10 years.
It's all a scam. The American people elected Donald Trump to end this scam. I appreciate Elvira, Byron. We could have you guys on for an hour. This is why I want longer segments. Thank you, guys. By the way, coming up, there are rumors that Anthony Scaramucci may return to the White House. The mooch when we come back. Two big shockers. Steve Bannon is out at Breitbart, and Anthony Scaramucci may be back at the White House. Joining us now from New York. I wish he was here.
Me too.
Anthony Scaramucci. Hey, Anthony, how you doing? Good to see you.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Congratulations on your unbelievable show, Laura. God bless you.
Oh, thank you. You got to come on more.
I'm thrilled to be here. Let's make this not the last time. How's that?
Fantastic. Let's talk about you in the White House. I'm reading all these stories and reports that you talk to the president regularly. He has an enormous amount of respect and affection for you. There's some desire to bring you back in. The White House is kind of being coy about it.
Okay, so that's all news to me. I have not heard any of that, and so I sort of addressed that on Howie's show over the weekend. I sort of think it's a little bit of nonsense. I'm not a presumptuous person. I don't expect to go back to the White House. I certainly said on the air I didn't think General Kelly would want to hire me back, although I think he's doing a great job, by the way. I just think that at the end of the day, they seem to be doing a great job. I thought today's communication strategy was absolutely brilliant, so my hat's off to them for allowing the American people to see the president, Laura, the way you know the president, the way I know the president, and his extreme, quote-unquote, presidential nature, which you saw today for 45 or 46 minutes. So,
don't you love Scaramucci? Don't you love how the left keeps saying he is mentally unstable? They are so desperate to try to discount his successes and accomplishments. They are getting, and it's what's funny about this is that they're the ones becoming more and more unhinged. Yeah. And I think mentally something, I don't say unstable, but
I don't want to give them almost. I don't want to give them a lot of advice on your unbelievably popular, well-rated show because I know that they're listening. But if the advice I would give them is you should sort of stop that because you're playing right into the president's hands. He wants you to go fully off the rails. He wants you to go crazy on him every single day and night because you look so disingenuous and you look so emotionally involved in it to the point where you've lost your objectivity completely. And so That's part of the whole derangement syndrome that goes on. And the president is surely stoking that, describing himself as a stable genius. I thought that was terrific. I've added that to my vernacular now, although my family members view me as an unstable, non-genius.
I don't think so, Mooch. I don't think
that's
you got
okay.
that. I'm just teasing you.
No, but my point is that at the end of the day, he's doing a great job. You know it. I know he's doing a great job.
Oh, it's unquestioned.
I think the Democrats tonight are going back to their boardrooms, wherever they go, and they're looking at each other saying, okay, this is a problem for us. The guy looks unbelievably presidential today. They're worried.
Tonight you were on CNN, and you said something. I was watching you. You said something interesting. Let's watch.
Okay.
To really understand the president, there's a nuance to him there as well. He is a globalist by nature. He wants to be part of the world order.
Okay, globalist by nature, part of the world order. Now, I hear that, and I think of the speech he gave not so long ago. I think it was at the UN. Let's listen. Let's watch.
Both our friends and our enemies put their countries above ours. And we, while being fair to them, must start doing the same. We will no longer surrender this country or its people to the false song of globalism.
Okay, which is the real President Trump?
Okay,
he said he's a globalist. He said he's against this globalist approach to affairs and for American sovereignty.
Okay, so I got cut off a little bit over there, and so let me finish it over here. What I was basically trying to say is that there's a duality to the president. He has a globalist streak in his personality where he wants to be part of the world order. He wants to give speeches at the UN. He's going to Davos in 2 weeks. He recognizes that the international system can lead to global peace and prosperity. At the same time, superseding all of that is his America First strategy and taking care of the American worker, American businesses, American families, infrastructure, and et cetera. He gave an interview with the Financial Times about 5 or 6 months ago, Laura, where he basically explained that duality in his personality. And so I was trying to get that out over there. Thank you for letting me get it out over here. But I would say he's a U.S. person first, America first. But I do think, as evidenced by what he's doing in 2 weeks and his UN speeches, that he does want to participate in the global community.
He's not an isolationist. Of course, he's not an isolationist. But my point is, he has specifically campaigned against the philosophy of globalism, because globalism is a philosophy that kind of erases national borders, national cultures, and national identities
that strand of it,
to a global order. When I hear global order, I hear, watch your freedom, watch your independence. But I get,
but that's a vernacular now that's sort of twisted that barbed wire. When I talk about the global order, I talk about our allies, the strength of our allies, hand-checking hard our adversaries, and keeping
that's not
the
Obama's
peace.
Globalism, though. That's
not Obama's globalism, but going back to like a Kissinger / Dean Atkinson approach to keeping the peace.
All right,
we do have 71 years of peace, so let's keep it.
That's for sure. Great to see you.
Thank you for
and by the way, Anthony, did you catch that college championship game last night? I did. I was there. It wasn't just a moment to savor for Alabama fans, though savor it we did. One of the best moments on the field came before the game. We're going to share with you what it means when we return. Last night's college football championship wasn't just a great game, Roll Tide. Before it started, there was not only the presentation of the colors and a salute to the military, but President Trump made a point of standing midfield for the anthem. To discuss the impact of that moment, we're joined by Joe Theismann, who quarterbacked the Washington Redskins to a Super Bowl victory in 1982. Boy, do we miss you, Joe. He's in Scottsdale, Arizona. And, of course, it's great to see you, Joe. Such a big fan. And, by the way, the president walked out with those ROTC members of the military, with salute to wounded veterans and veterans, military folks. It was a beautiful moment. It was overwhelming cheers in the stadium. There are a few boos from misguided college students, but overwhelmingly, it was huge positive reaction. What did you think in watching that and comparing that to the NFL and what we've seen this season with a drop-off in viewership and so forth?
Well, Laura, just listening to you describe it, I get goosebumps because it was such an incredible moment of a celebration of a great nation and what we represent and what it's all about. I had the opportunity to play in front of President Jimmy Carter, and I can tell you something. When the president's in attendance, it's a different type of a game. But to see so many people celebrate this great flag, this great country of ours, and the NFL has, taken a hit for it. I think the viewership is down. There are a lot of people that have served this country. There are a lot of people that have sacrificed and had family members that have sacrificed for the freedoms that we have. And that's sort of the double-edged sword a little bit. The flag stands for something very special. It stands for those people that have sacrificed to allow us to be who we are and have the freedoms that we have. And to me, I never agreed with some of the things that the players have done, but yet they do have the right to be able to do that because that's what the freedom for the flag was all about. But to see the president out there last night at that football game, he's a huge fan. He's a fan of sports. He's a fan of football. And to see him at that game, I think, was very, very special.
Yeah, and Joe, by the way, I was lucky enough to get tickets to the game and sat around some amazing people, old players and family members of the old athletic director and a former coach at West Point. He played for Bear Bryant, Bill Battle. So I sat with his family. Just amazing people, so patriotic. And I can tell you when they show the soldiers in Kandahar and of course in Afghanistan and then in Iraq, I think they showed soldiers in Iraq as well. The stadium went just crazy for the soldiers, for the troops, and
they have, Laura, and that's the thing. I think the support of what is going on, the opportunity to be able to voice your opinion in a positive way about the men and women that fight for our freedom. The police officers, the first responders, the firemen, those people that put themselves in harm's way. It's a special breed of people. They don't know when they wake up the next morning what the day's going to hold in store for them. And that's why I think they should be honored. And that's why the flag honors them. It's a little way we can do it at home.
Well, of course, something has to happen before the game, which as an Alabama fan, I was beyond outraged by, so upset, is when that clip emerged from the running back, Bo Scarborough, and we have a little snippet from it. Let's watch. We had to bleep it, but he says blank Trump as they were walking into the stadium. And that made the rounds, and it was rumored that he was benched. I don't know do you know if he was benched or not? I don't think he was. I don't know. Was he benched for the game? I don't even know.
He wasn't. He wasn't benched for the game. It's just wrong. I mean, it just shows disrespect.
Joe, you're a straightforward guy. I got to ask you, straightforward guy. Should he have been benched? That's what young people are seeing the day after that phenomenal game, one of the greatest playoff games, championship games ever, bowl games. That was one of the great games, and all of us who were there felt like we're so privileged. That clip. If I were Saban, I would have said, you know something? Take a seat. You can't hold your tongue you can't hold your tongue? Are you kidding me? I would have benched him. And I've had a chance of meeting Nick Saban. I'm surprised he didn't.
Well, I'm not surprised because, look at a lot of different things that have happened on football teams, on different types of teams where people have been able to say and do things. It's unfortunately, Laura, it's part of what's become a norm in society today, an expression of any type. But to me, you disrespect the office, you disrespect the person.
And the school.
It's everybody's entitled to have an opinion. But there's a respectful way to do things.
That's not an opinion. That's stupidity. It's not an opinion.
It is stupid.
That's profanity and stupidity. I'm sorry. It's both.
And thinking about it, I probably would have said, I'm sorry, you can't play in this game. I would have said that. What he said instead,
you know what he said instead? Not talking about Saban. Bo Scarborough then compounded the problem by claiming in a tweet that he was talking about Georgia. He wasn't talking about Georgia. He said, y'all promise I didn't say anything about the president. I did say something I shouldn't have said about Georgia, and I'm sorry for that. No, he didn't. He said Trump. You can hear it very clearly in the tape. I mean, so anyway, look, I don't want to. There was an amazing game. President Trump was great there. The troops were honored. So all of that was incredible. But that moment, that was a disappointment. And these guys are lucky and privileged to be playing for such a great team. And a great coach.
But what a spectacular evening. Both Alabama and Georgia played their heart out. And I will say this. The pass the young man from Alabama threw that tied the football games, I believe he was throwing it to the guy behind the guy that caught it.
Oh, okay, Joe. I was sitting there and I didn't see that.
Take a look at that clip again. Take a look at it again, because he throws it into a space where I believe he's thrown it to the guy that's hooking up behind him. And all of a sudden, the other guy shows up, and here we are today. Alabama's another national championship.
I had several heart attacks in the stands, several heart attacks last night. But Georgia played a great game, and I felt bad for the Georgia fans. So, but it was an amazing night. Joe, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And by the way, when he bragged that he had a bigger nuclear button than Kim Jong-un, the experts predicted the president was stoking war with North Korea. Well, wait until you hear what's happened now. Up next. Welcome back to our new and recurring segment, The Experts. Remember those prophecies of gloom and doom following President Trump's tweet that his nuclear button was bigger than Rocket Man's?
We all live in a world that could literally be ended in terms of a habitable planet because of this sad man's insecurity.
It's like somebody hasn't told him how this is reading to the rest of the world.
His potential mental instability has actually now intersected with the single most dangerous potential issue that faces us all as humans on the planet.
This isn't 3D chess. This is a child getting angry and knocking the board over.
Can we retire the 3D chess verbiage? I'm tired of that. So maybe those experts can explain this. North Korea is suddenly meeting with South Korea to reduce military tensions, a thaw in relations. Here to react, Gordon Chang, author of the 2006 book, Nuclear Showdown, North Korea Takes on the World. And with me in Washington, Michael Fuchs, who is a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress. Michael, let's go right to you. Predictions of doom and gloom. It's all going to end. Trump is a disaster on foreign policy. Suddenly, Kim Jong-un's people are talking to the South Koreans. They're going to go to the Olympics.
Well, look, I think this is clearly a good development here. The North and the South are talking. That is good. Diplomacy is the only way we're going to solve this threat in North Korea. I think that President Trump's comments to date have unfortunately exacerbated the problem. And I think what we're seeing out of Kim Jong-un reaching out to the South right now is actually trying to poke and prod for weakness in the alliance between South Korea and the United States. He sees some of the errant tweets coming from the president of the United States.
So he's meeting with the South because of the tweets?
Well, exactly.
That's a good thing, right? So isn't that going to be reverse psychology from Trump?
Well, look, I'll take it right now. But again, I'm more scared of President Trump's tweets than I am.
Than Kim Jong-un.
No, not at all.
Are. I'm joking. I'm teasing you. Let's go to Gordon Chang real quickly. Gordon, your quick take on this.
Well, I think Kim Jong-un understands that sanctions are hurting his regime. Those are UN sanctions that have been put in place because of the Trump administration, plus also unilateral U.S. sanctions. And we see this. Kim Jong-un in his New Year's address talked about sanctions being an existential threat to his government. Also, there's anecdotal evidence of just so many instances of people not getting money. So this is a real indication that the underlying Trump policy of cutting off money to the North Korean regime is actually starting to work. And that's one of the reasons why Kim Jong-un wants to talk to the South Koreans, because he wants the South Koreans to pay them cash.
All right, Michael, closing thoughts real quick.
Well, look, I think that this is a potential opportunity for the United States. The real question now is, what does the Trump administration do? Are they able to stay in lockstep coordination with our ally in South Korea and try to actually start U.S.-North Korea diplomacy?
Very
interesting. Which is the only way we're going to really address this.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have you back for an extended discussion. And by the way, I know you guys were watching the Golden Globes the other night with popcorn and some big super gulps. Up next, Oprah. Oh, her future. I'll comment and a lot more. Welcome back. The little wolf and the black dresses. That's the focus of my bonus angle. First, I was remiss on Friday because I did not mention the part of that Michael Wolff screed that mentioned yours truly. It's just a small anecdote that claimed that at the funeral of former Fox News chairman Roger Ailes, quote, right-wing professionals remain passionate in their outward defense of Trump, but were rattled, if not abashed, among one another. At the funeral, Rush Limbaugh and Laura Ingraham struggled to parse support for Trumpism, even as they distanced themselves from Trump himself. Okay, I can tell you that that is totally fabricated. It never happened. And by the way, it's really poorly written. What does parsing support even mean? And after talking to others who were there, I can tell you that Trump wasn't really even discussed much, if at all, at the funeral. But Wolff didn't care. He wanted to advance his rickety anti-Trump agenda The facts be damned. He didn't care. And no, I didn't buy the stupid book. I borrowed someone else's. All right, second, the Golden Globes. For once, I wasn't in the slightest annoyed when my cable went out on Sunday night. I have one of those systems. They're supposed to be so great. They control all the TVs. It never works. I was blissfully unaware of that hashtag Time's Up and those black dress declarations by women who, for the most part, just happen to be a bunch of left-wing Democrats. Same women who were mostly silent during Harvey Weinstein's reign of sexual terror. Excuse me, but watching a bunch of self-absorbed actresses try to one-up each other with emoting and conjured-up empathy isn't exactly my idea of a fun Sunday night. That Time's Up group, led by left-wing industry types, announced before the show that they'd all be wearing black to protest men who harass women. There wasn't much of a mention of women who harass men, as I recall. Imagine the pressure on young actresses in attendance to conform. Not only are so many in the industry afraid to express views that may be remotely conservative, now they're afraid to dress the way they want to dress and the color they want to wear. So how is it any less demeaning and domineering for a bunch of powerful women to tell other women what to wear than it is for powerful men to do the same? Answer? It's not. And as for resulting in some tangible change for the farm workers and the hospitality workers, well, I'll let Rose McGowan, the actress largely responsible for blowing the whistle on the sleaze in Hollywood, sum it up. She said, "That's a Band-Aid to make yourself feel better about what you've all known about and been silent witnesses to and or participants in that silence. And no, I don't forgive." Well, now Washington is taking up that tedious torch of fake protest. A group of Democratic lawmakers have announced that they're going to be wearing, wait for it, black in support of Time's Up and that movement at the State of the Union. Another reason not to watch. If it weren't for President Trump, I wouldn't. Must every moment of our communal life be overshadowed by protest? And then there's Oprah Winfrey. Now, I caught her speech on YouTube. I had a 5-hour delay coming back from the big game last night. It was nicely written and it was well delivered, her talk at the Golden Globes. But it was also purely political. Are we to believe that she, like Meryl Streep and all the other actresses, producers, and so forth, just had their epiphanies about Weinstein, Spacey, and all the rest of them in Hollywood? Oprah, who, by the way, has spoke really compellingly about the abuse she suffered as a child, she had the biggest megaphone in the media for decades. Surely she knew that both straight and gay men in Hollywood had abused their positions of power for years. There are victims all over the place. So my question is, what took them so long? Here's my angle on this. Since that Russia collusion narrative about President Trump hasn't materialized, and since all these predictions about the Trump apocalypse haven't come true, the economy is doing so well, the left is desperately scrambling for anything to hold on to, anything to give them hope. So it's Oprah. She's their lifeline. Well, I say Oprah should throw her hat in the ring. Why not? The president apparently feels the same.
Oprah would be a lot of fun. I know her very well. You know, I did one of her last shows. She had Donald Trump, this is before politics, her last week. And she had Donald Trump and my family. It was very nice. No, I like Oprah. I don't think she's going to run.
Look, Oprah's accomplished. She's fun to watch. She's smart. And I think she'll also quickly see just how different politics is from hosting a talk show. Different game. America isn't the room who gave her the standing O on Sunday night. And if she did run, before long, I predict she's going to have a lot more respect for just how hard it was for Donald Trump, a total outsider to politics, to have run, beaten all those Republicans, beat the Obamas, beat the Clintons, beat the media, beat Hollywood, and win it all. Oprah Winfrey versus who? Who could she run against? She could run against Matt Damon, George Clooney, Rosie, Elizabeth Warren. What other parade of horrible can I trot out? Before we go, be sure to stay right here. We got a lot more to get to. Before we go, breaking news out of California. A district court judge appointed by Bill Clinton has put a temporary hold, a preliminary injunction granted in forcing the president to reinstitute the terms of DACA. The administration has to return the terms of DACA as they're renegotiating DACA. This is judicial activism at its finest. We'll report more on this tomorrow, and I'll also do it on radio. Now, Shannon Bream and the Fox News at Night team are up to take it from here. Miss Shannon.
Yeah, we're going to pick up on that new court ruling as well, Laura. Thank you very much. Here's what else we have coming up tonight.